All right, we are now definitely joined at this point by Mohammed Ehab El-Karbatli. Thank you so much for joining us. Tell us a bit about the impact that COVID-19, this pandemic, all of the lockdowns have had on your profession.
Hello everyone, my name is Mohammed Ehab. I'm a first officer on the Hawker 850 XPI. It's a mid-size private jet. I have almost 1,200 of flying hours, and I have been in business aviation for almost 3 years now. I finished my flight training in USA and in Denmark. And before this, I had a bachelor degree in business administration and marketing. So I'm here today to talk about the impact of the pandemic on the business aviation and on aviation as general. But I would like to start my talk with some positivity. That aviation have been through many hard times over years, and every time aviation industry get over it. So we already been through many hard times before, so I'm sure this time also we will get over it. And I wish my friends who are in some airlines and got fired recently, just don't lose hope and be positive, and for sure something better is waiting for you. So currently, I will show you a graph showing the statistics about the pandemic's effects over the years on aviation. So through statistics, we can find out here every almost 10 years there is a pandemic effect worldwide. And we can see this in 2009, there was swine flu, and it had a great effect on the aviation industry and all other industries as well. So we used to these pandemics, and this year we got COVID-19 in 2019. And I'm sure airlines industry will know how to manage this because we got already experience from other same situations. So also, according to the IATA, it shows up statistics that every 10 years there is 400,000 people die from a disease, which highly affects the airline companies globally. So IATA have made the statistics that according to the swine flu in 2009, we got around $222,000 lose per aircraft. So according to the IATA, the COVID-19 caused a global loss of at least 63 billion for the airline sector, which is around 2.25 million per aircraft. This is a very huge number and a very huge loss for airlines. So I would say the COVID-19 and the current pandemic is really challenging for current airlines and aviation industry overall. So we can see also the big difference according to the Eurocontrol. They had made a comparison between flights over Europe in April 2019, comparing it to April 2020. We can see a reduction of around 80% reduction in the flying and traffic over Europe, which means the big lose really for all airlines. So also a lot of people ask why aviation industry gets affected directly by any pandemics. Actually, it's because I know all industries have been affected by pandemics, but aviation is the first industry that usually get affected by this, because to operate an airline or a private jet, you need to pay a lot of expenses. And we can see here, this graph is from the IATA. It shows us the percentage of every expenses that the airline operator should pay. So we can see here around the fuel and oil is around 33%. Compare, so this is if the airplane not flying, so the company doesn't pay, but there is still around 67% expenses airlines have to pay and operators have to pay. Even if the airplanes are grounded, so the companies still have to pay crew salary, the parking salary, and the maintenance, and all these fees have to be paid to make the company exist in the market. Otherwise, if they don't pay it, the company cannot survive in current situations like this. So some governments, like in Europe, they started to support the airlines by giving them, by paying around 60 to 70% of the salary of their crew and pilots and all the people who works in this company. They try to pay 60 to 70% of their salaries. This is to help the companies to keep surviving in the market, to keep exist. In some companies, if they don't have any support from governments or from outside, they start to do their own way to make these reductions. They start to fire pilots, they start to fire some crew, and till they get over this situation, because as you can see, there is a lot of expenses to be covered by the airlines. So this is the main reason why the airlines and the aviation industry get affected by any political, any pandemics affect the world. So we'll come now to how is business aviation doing during this pandemic? Is it affected by this pandemic or no? First of all, business aviation is a little bit different than commercial flights, because we have flexibility in time, we have flexibility in flying to other places. We go sometimes to destinations that commercial airlines doesn't go to it. So yes, we can say business aviation is sure affected by this pandemic, and this because now we started to have more restrictions, more permits to get obtained before any flight. I myself, in my company, for example, when we used to have a normal flight, only one person can work on the permits and get it. Now around 5 people work on one permit to make it done, because now you have to get many permissions from many different authorities and from both countries, your company of country of origin and the destination. So it becomes more complicated and more challenging now to operate one flight. And but we still do some flights, and since the lockdown have started, I myself have done like 60 hours average per month for the last 3 months. So all these flights is mainly medical flights and diplomatic evacuation flights, taking people to home and some time, and we had the chance to make around almost 180 flying hours, taking people to their homes safely. And to do these flights, companies and operators have to make some procedures to protect their crew and the passengers. We have to make everything clean, everything, we have to use masks and we have to use gloves. We have to make many procedures to protect both passengers and the crew. So it's very challenging, really, but we have made it and we have done it. And I'm so proud I was able to fly during this time to take people safely to their homes. So, and I think this time is a very good time for the private jet operators because, for example, we started to have on board some people. It's their first time ever to fly a private jet because it was the only way for them to be back home. So they have no choice. So they start to think about private jets. And actually, some operators started to offer empty legs, which is less prices, and people started to get these empty legs. And I can see sometimes we have people on board, a group of people, they collect money from each other and divide the total price of the private jet on each of them, and they make the flight. So I think now it could be a very challenging time for business aviation, but it's also a good time, and operators can take advantage of this situation to create new market for and to attract new customers for the private jets. Um, I could say also private jets are, in my opinion, in the upcoming time and the upcoming months till the end of the year, will have a high demand. Even when airlines start to operate normally, I think a lot of people, till we get over this pandemic completely, they will start to think, why don't they use a private jet? It's less crowded, and when you use a private jet, you go through a private jet terminal, so you don't need to stay in the long queues and get interacted with another people in crowded terminals, and you need to interact with many people, security, passports. It's a long process. So if you can afford the private jet, it's more safer for you now, and this is what the operators will use this marketing for. So this is the main advantage for private jets currently. Although in normal operation, if we are in summertime, for example, it's the high season for private jets. So I think the upcoming months from June till October or September will be very challenging for all operators because before we used to travel to many summer destinations, Ibiza, Nice, and Olbia. Currently, if the lockdown still continue, people will not start to fly again to normally. So operators will have a very challenging time if they didn't attract new customers to the private aviation sector. So people ask me sometime, and people also think, how long it will take the business aviation sector to recover from this current pandemic? Actually, I would say, according to the statistics have been made before, and during the swine flu pandemic in 2009, it took around it took around six months to get over it a little bit and to start to increase by 50% on the traffic on the skies. So I would say because the current pandemic, the COVID-19, is more challenging, and it's considered to be the most challenging for the aviation industry. So I think it would take 6 to 12 months to get over this situation. So by January next year, I think everything would be settled, and mainly we can operate normally after this year. So I got a lot of questions on my Instagram from new pilots and people who are studying aviation currently. They say, we are depressed, I don't know what my future will be, and now a lot of airlines firing a lot of pilots, and it will be very hard to get a job. I would say for new pilots, just stay positive and currently just focus on your study, focus on how you finish your education and get your license. Then afterwards, you never know what will happen after. So just focus on your studies now, and if you already got your pilot license and were searching for a job, I would share with you a little bit with my story. After I finished my bachelor degree, because being a pilot was a big dream for me since I was 10 years old. So I couldn't join the flight training once I finished high school because of many issues, and I had to start with my bachelor degree, and I chose something also I like, which is the marketing field. And after I finished, I started my flight training. It took me a very long time because of financial issues sometime and because of many other issues. So it took me around 4 years in total to finish my pilot license. And it was very tough and very long, and I had some ups and downs during this journey, but finally I made it. And during my studies, I didn't think at all about what job I get. I was thinking I will not get a job because I'm easy. I know I will get to aircraft at the end, but I know it will need from me some time. After I finished my studies, I applied in many airlines. I applied for cabin crew positions. I wanted to join the field, and after I can continue and achieve my dream. So just stay positive. Just think what you need to do and take all the resources to get your job. I get my first pilot job through LinkedIn. I didn't have any connections. I didn't know any people in this field, and I was just trying to use all the resources I have. I used LinkedIn for almost 6 months. I was sending emails to operators, sending emails to aircraft owners, to general manager, operation managers. And during this time, I had to get back to Egypt from Denmark, and I stayed almost 1 year searching for a pilot job. And I got the job through LinkedIn. I sent email to a CEO of a company, and then he was interested in me. Then I got the job. So it maybe take a long time from you. It maybe needs a lot of effort from you to achieve this dream and make it happen. So think positive and set your goals high, and don't stop till you get to your dream and make it happen. And I'm open for your questions concerning the pandemic or concerning my career.
Mohammed, can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. We do have time for a couple questions. I wanted to ask you, your profession is extremely high stress. It's a situation where you need to stay cool, calm, and collected as much as possible, even in critical moments. Do you think that's an ability that people can develop, which is something certainly they need right now during this crisis?
Well, I think anything you can do by training. You have to train yourself. If you train yourself for any attitude, you will be able to make it happen. For example, for all pilots, we go for simulator every 6 months, and during these simulator sessions, we not fly the airplane normally in the simulator. We got always failures, engine fires, any emergency scenarios. We always get trained to it. And we always do major stuff. We have to do it every 6 months, and every 6 months also we get additional trainings about different situations. By getting these trainings, you start to get used to it. So when you have this emergency case in normal life, engine fire, double engine failure, any kind of these failures, we can deal with it normally with little bit calm down. I wouldn't say I would be zero relaxing, but you still around more than 70% confident that you can handle this situation because you're already trained for it. So anything can be done, I believe, by training and by working on yourself, you can make it.
A lot of businesses right now, because of the crisis, have found themselves back at zero. You're talking about persevering, about staying positive, and being able to adapt to that sort of situation. Is there a parallel to be drawn here that you're saying, if there's a emergency situation with a plane, you need to make an emergency landing or something like that? How do you then motivate yourself to take another flight, to put yourself in that situation again?
Well, I tell you, real situation happened to me. I got rapid decompression while we are flying at 41,000 feet. And this rapid decompression means there is a problem in the ventilation system of the aircraft. There is a problem with the oxygen. And you have only few seconds. You have to descend to 15,000 feet. Otherwise, there will be no oxygen and you maybe cannot survive, all of us. And we already trained for this situation. And really, when you face it in real time, it's a little bit different, but we handled it and we managed it and we landed safely and everyone was okay, nobody was hurt, and all was good. For me, I took this, sometimes people say, oh, I will not fly again, this is so dangerous, I don't want to put myself again in this airplane. But I took it as experience. It's added a lot to my experience when I have this current situation and I handle it, and in real life, it's different from being it. And I would say always, if you love something you are doing, whatever it happens, you will continue. Because no job or nothing in life is so easy. It's everything with ups and downs. And you have to love what you do, and whatever happens, you will get back to it. Yes, I myself got sometimes down, but I have to bring myself up again. And this is how I do it.
A number of people watching this forum can probably not even imagine what it's like flying in a private jet. You were talking about that a bit earlier in your presentation, but can you tell us, having flown so many of those flights and seen those people who do take them, is there a certain amount of qualities, certain kinds of qualities that those people have that you would recommend our viewers try and strive for?
Well, mostly what I would say about private jets, the luxury part about private jets is the time, because you save so much time when you use private jet. And usually the people who flies with us, even they are famous people, VIPs, and people who works for other big companies who pays for them these flights. Because sometimes we have people have meeting in this country, and after 4 hours they have a meeting in another country. And the only thing to do this and make it happen is private jet, because we are flexible on time. Anytime the client would like to fly, if it fits with our crew rest and time, we fly for him. So sometimes if you have a meeting in Paris in the morning and then you have to go to Italy in the evening for another meeting, you cannot manage this with the normal airline easily. So I would say people who use private jets mainly is to save time. Besides the luxurious part, for sure, you have champagne on board, you can order what you want, and this is the other luxurious part of it. And also, there's some advantages that you don't wait in terminals, you just get direct to the airplane. You don't need to stay 3 hours in the airport waiting the aircraft, you can just arrive and jump in the aircraft and go. So that saves so much time for these people. And some people ask me, oh, it's only for rich people who can afford it. As I mentioned, some people who works for big companies, like CEOs, like people who can make stuff that others cannot do, and some people hire them just to make this. So if you are so smart in your work, and if you give more effort to your job or the thing you like, you can get on a private jet, and it's not only for rich people. Also, it's also for rich and smart ones.
Mohammed, I really appreciate your optimism. I hope that, as you were saying, that things by the beginning of the next year will already start to be coming back to normal slowly but surely. We do want to thank you for joining us at this forum today, Mohammed Ihab, First Officer. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.